Hello, welcome to the Zero Ends channel. Please like and subscribe. Please enjoy our live.
Zero Ends. Hey, what's good, guys? What's good? Make sure as you do view this video or stream, make sure you hit the like button, comment, and subscribe to the channel. And also, it's always good to see some feedback. So please, if you have any oppositions or your views of this particular video, please leave a nice comment with a like, if by all means, and you know let's get started. And it's been a while since I did one of these, but this one I looked at it and caught my attention. So let's look at this article at hand. It's hard to be a moral person. Technology is making it harder. As you see the thumbnail and the title here speaks for itself. Digital distractions such as social media and smartphones wreak havoc our attention span. Could they also be making us less ethical? All right. It was on the day I read a Facebook post by my sick friend that I started to really question my relationship with technology. And mind you, people have a relationship between their smartphones, their tablets, and their how can you say it? Their laptops. But most people nowadays are on their phone. So they can't live without the smartphone, including ladies. A lot of ladies nowadays, they're always glued to their phone looking for the latest gossip and effery. But let's read more. An old friend had posted a status update saying he needed to rush to the hospital because he was having health crisis. I half choked on my tea and stared at my laptop. I recognized the post as a appeal for support. I felt fear for him. And then I did nothing about it because I saw in another tab that just gotten a new email and went to check that instant. After a few minutes scrolling my Gmail, I realized something was messed up. The new email was obviously not as urgent as the sick friend, and yet I act as if they had equally claim on my attention. What was wrong with me was a terrible person. I dashed off a message to my friend, but continued to feel disturbed. Gradually, though, I came to think this was less an indication that I was an immoral individual and more of a reflection of a bigger societal problem. And what is that societal problem, might I add? Because as y'all know today, and there are many channels, and if you follow me closely, if it's not on this channel, probably was on their channel. One guy named Sam Vakman did a study and had a discussion with another gentleman about social media and its effects on people's psychology and their ways of life. And normally, I think that video came out maybe a decade ago. But the point is, the overall view, he did studies on this for the last 20 or more years on how when we start having blogs and stuff and going to special chat rooms, that it reveals the inhibitions or the intention of a lot of people, men and women. When you go to these little sites, when you're typing up, and conversing people behind blogs and, chat rooms. But I'm not going to hold you up. Let's keep going. I begin to notice that digital technology often seems to make it harder for us to respond in the right way when someone is suffering and need our help. Think of all the times a friend has called you to talk through something sad or stressful. and you couldn't barely stop your twitchy fingers from checking your email or scroll through Instagram as they talk. Think of all the times you've seen an article in your Facebook news feed about anguish people desperate for help, or anguishing people desperate for help. Starving children in Yemen, dying of the COVID-19 pattern in India, only to get distracted by a funny meme that appears right above it. Think of countless stories or cameras, phones, short circuiting circuiting human decency. Many of bystanders had witnessed a car accident or a first fight and taken out of their phones to film the drama rather than rushing over to see if the victim needs help. One Canadian government commission report found that when our experience of the world is mediated by smartphones, we often fixate or capturing a spectacle because we want to rush we'll get from the instant reaction to our videos on social media. Let that sink in right here. Let that sink in. Fixated. Fixated. But why are we so fixated to the point where we don't take action, but we sit there? We are more eager to post it on the digital front for the whole world to see instead of taking action to hopefully circumvent. Answer is simple. Because we love and we thrive off attention. And that's the danger. That's danger. I want that to sink in. We look for clicks and baits. But let me keep going. Multiple studies have suggested that the digital technology is shortening our attention span, which it has. So, and making us more distracted. What if it also making us less empathical, less prone to ethical action? What if it's degrading our capacity for more attention, the capacity to notice the morality, sentence features of a given situation so that we can respond appropriately? There is a lot of evidence that indicates that our devices really are having this negative effect. Tech companies continue to bake in designs elements that amplify the effects, elements that make it hard for us to sustain uninterpreted or uninterrupted attention to the things that really matters or even to notice them in the first place. And they do this even though it becoming increasingly clear that this is bad not only for our individuals interpersonal relationships but also for our politics. There's a reason why former President Barack Obama now says that the internet and social media have created the single biggest threat to our democracy. Well, it will create a threat for people that are Democrats, maybe, because now, and I'm not saying which you should pick between Republican and Democrats during any upcoming elections following this year or the next. But to keep in mind, when you hear somebody that's on that side really say something about that, you got to really think really clear about that. Because it only affects if you're talking about democracy and we live in a republic, unless you are lying and hiding things to the general public and you try to use things to keep the lie going. It will be a threat to that. But when people point altered information to make people think, then yeah, you will say that. Just keep that in mind. The idea of moral attention goes back at least as far as ancient Greece, where the Stoics wrote about the practice of attention, Koshi, I think that's how I pronounce it, as the cornerstone of a good spiritual life. In modern Western thought, though, ethicians or ethnicists didn't focus too much on attention until a band of female philosophers came along, starting with Simone Wells. People should look her up. Well, an earlier 20th century French philosopher and Christianist mystic wrote that attention is the rarest and purest form of generosity. Mm. She believes that to be able to properly pay attention to someone else, to become fully receptive to their situation and all its complexities, you need to first get your own self out of the way. She calls the process, or called this process, decreation, and explains attention consists of suspending our thought, leaving it detached, empty, ready to receive in its naked truth the object that is to penetrate it. And this is well said. And I think since a woman came up with this, it makes sense why a lot of women always seeking attention for these social media apps and apparatus and et cetera, even including OnlyFans. Keep that in mind. Well argued that plans owe attention, the kind you use when reading novels, saying, or bread watching, is a precondition for more attention, which is a precondition for empathy, which is a precondition for ethical actions. Later philosophers like Iris Murdoch and Martha Nussbaum picked up and developed Wells' ideal. They grabbed them in the language of Western philosophies. Murdoch, for example, appeals to Plato as she writes about the need for unselfing, but central ideals of unselfing or the creation is perhaps most what they call reminiscent of Eastern traditions like Buddhism, which had long emphasized the importance of relinquishing our ego and training our attention so we can perceive and respond to others' needs. It offers tools like mindfulness meditation for doing just that. The idea that you should practice emptying out yourself to become receptive to someone else is anti-ethical to today's digital technology, said Beverly McGraw, a historian of religion at the University of North Carolina, Wilmington, who researched moral attention. Decreating the self, that is the opposite of self media. She says, adding that Facebook, Instagram, and other platforms are all about identifying construction users built up an inspirational version of themselves forever. Adding more words, images, and videos, thickening the self into a brand. What moreover, the past decade, a babe and psychologists have conducted multiple studies exploring how often people use social media and the way it impacts their psychological health. They found that social media encourage users to compare themselves to others. This social comparison is baked into the platform designed because the Facebook algorithm bumps posts up in our newsfeed that have gotten plenty of likes and congratulatory comments. We end up seeing a highlight reel of our friends' lives. They seem to be always succeeding. We feel like failure. By contrast, we typically then either spend more time scrolling on Facebook in the hopes that we'll find someone worse off so we feel better, or we post our own status update emphasizing how great our lives are going. Both responses penetrate or perpetuate the vicious cycle. Pause, breathe, and relax. And always make sure you leave a comment and like this video as well. And keep in mind, keep in mind, keep in mind, This was written a while back, not too far, not too old per se, but nonetheless, it made its so-called rounds throughout digital realm. So I want that sinking a little bit. And as I'm looking at something, hold on. All right. All right, let's continue on. Where was I? In other words, rather than helping us get our own selves out of this way so we can truly attend to others, these platforms encourage us to create thicker sleeves and to shore them up. Defensively, completely against other selves we perceive as better off. And these are the devices they talk about from Amazon, X, not Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Google, i.e., YouTube. YouTube, especially. And what about emails? What was really happening today? I got distracted from my sick friend's Facebook post and went to look at my Gmail instead. I asked Tristan Harris, a former design ethnicist at Google, how he now leads a center of human technology, which aims to realign tech with humanity-based interests. And he was part of the popular Netflix documentary, The Social Dilemma, which some people got to check out. All right. We all been there. He assures me I work on Gmail myself, and I know how the tabs change the number of patterns or prefaces when you see the number go up. It's tapping into novelty seeking, same as a slot machine. It's making you aware of the gaps in your knowledge, and now you want to close it. It's a curiosity gap. Plus, human beings naturally avert their attention from uncomfortable or painful stimulus like a health crisis. Harris added, and now with notification coming at us from all sides. It never been easier to have an excuse to attentive or leave an uncomfortable stimulus. By fragmenting my attention and dangling before it is possible or something newer and happier, Gmail designers had exploited my innate psychological vulnerability and had made me more likely to turn away from my sick friend posts, degrading my moral attention. The problem isn't just Gmail. Silicon Valley designer has studied a whole suite of permissive technologies, tricking and using them in everything from Amazon one-click shop to Facebook's news feed to YouTube's video recommending algorithm. Something the goal or pervasive technology is to get us to spend money as with Amazon. But often it's just to keep us looking and scrolling and clicking on a platform for as long as possible. That's because the platform makes its money not by selling something to us, but by selling us that is our attention to advertisers. Let that sink in. The longer you're on those sites, the longer, the more ad revenue they make. Facebook is notorious for this. For those that did not know, when the lady that worked for Facebook brought in front of Congress to really reveal the problems with Facebook at the time when Facebook, I think back in 2020, one of the years, like a few years back, how they had to sit there explain how Facebook worked, and now they had to give you a disclaimer of they are using your data, which one time they never did when they first its inception for over a decade ago. All right. Think of how Snapchat rewards you with badges when you're on the app more. How Instagram sends us notifications to come check out the latest image. How Twitter purposely makes you wait a few seconds to see notifications. Or how Facebook infinitely scroll feature invites you to engage in just one or more scrolls. A lot of these tricks can be traced back to B.J. Fogg, a social scientist who in 1998, now 26 years ago, founded the Stanford Persuasive Technology Lab to teach bonding entrepreneurs how to modify human behavior through tech. A lot of designers who went on to hold leadership positions at company like Facebook, Instagram, and Google include Harris Pass through Fogg, famously class. More recently, technologists have codified these lessons in books like Hook by Nuraya, which offers instructions on how to make a product addictive. Let that sink in. The result of all this is what Harris called human downgrading, and that's in bold letters. A decade of evidence now suggests that digital tech is eroding our attention, which is eroding our moral attention, which erodes our empathy. Let that sit. I leave it there. Let's say it. I'm not leaving it. I'm just gonna let it sit right there. In 2010, psychologists at the University of Michigan analyzed the findings of 72 studies of American college students' emphasized level conduct over 3 decades. They discovered something startling. There have been a more than 40% drop of empathy among students. Most of the decline happens after 2000, the decade that Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube took off, leading to the hypothesis that digital tech was largely to blame. Let me read that again for those that didn't understand. There has been more than a 40% drop in empathy among students. Most of that decline happened after 2000, the decade that Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube took off, leading to the hypothesis digital tech was largely to blame. So, for the past 24 years now, and mind you, Facebook came out in 2004. YouTube/Google did not really start founding itself until 2004 and established 2005. That's now roughly 20 years ago. 19, but really 20 years ago after Super Bowl, when they start create what we call YouTube. And the other thing, Twitter, I think Twitter came out in 2010 or 2012, I think. Yeah. It didn't came out in the 2000s. It came out the next decade. Anyhow. In 2014, a team of psychologists in California authored and study exploring technology impact from the different direction. They study kids at devices-free outdoor camps. After a few days without their phones, the kids were accurately reading people's facial expressions and emotionally much better than a control group of kids. Taking or talking to one another face to face, it seems had enhanced their attentional and emotional capacity. In 2015, Pew Research Center surveyed 89% of American respondents admit that they whipped out their phones during their last social interaction. What more than 82% said it deteriorate the conversation of decreasing the empathy connection they felt towards the other people they were with. But what even more discouraging is that our devices disconnect us even when we're not using them. Mm. Let that sink in. Just let that sink in. As MIT sociologist Shirley Turkle, who researched technology advertise affects the social behavior, has noted, studies of conversations both in the laboratories and in natural settings show that when two people are talking, the mere presence of a phone on a table between them or in the what they call periphery of their peripheral of their vision change both what they talked about and the degrees of connection they feel. People keep the conversation on topic where they won't mind being interrupted. They don't feel and invest in each other. We're living in Simone Wells' nightmare. Mm. I might I might have to look her up maybe more for future content. We'll see. We'll see. All right. Digital tech doesn't only erodes our attention, it also divides and redirects our attention into separate information ecosystem. So that the news you see is different from, say, the news your grandmother sees, and that has profound effects on what each of us end up viewing as morally slanted. To make this concrete, think about the recent US election as the former President Donald Trump racked up millions of votes. Many liberals wonder incrementally how nearly half of the electorate could possibly vote for a man who had put kids in cages, enabling a pandemic that was deleting many thousands of Americans and so much more. Who or how was all that not a deal breaker? You look over at this other side of and you say, "Oh my God, how can they be so stupid? Aren't they seeing the same information I'm seeing?" Nope, nope. Harris said, and the answer is they're not. Trump voters said a very different version of reality than other over the past 4 years. Their Their Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and other accounts feed them countless stories about how the Democrats are cooking crazy or straight up satanic. See under QAnon or QAnon. These platforms help ensure that users who click on one story such would be led down by rabbit holes where they'll be met by more and more similar stories. Say you could choose between these two types of Facebook feeds. One of the constant give you more complex and more challenges views of reality, and one that consistently gives you more reason why you're right and the other side is wrong. Which would you prefer? Most people would prefer the second feed, which technologists call an affirmation feed, making that option more accessible for the company's business model than the first confront feed. Harris explains social media companies give users more of what they already indicate they like, so as to keep their attention for longer. The longer they can use users or keep users' eyes glued to the platform, the more they get paid by the advertisers. That means the companies profit by putting each of us into our own ideological bubble. Think about how this plays out when a platform has 2.7 billion users, as Facebook does. The business model shift our collective attention onto certain stories to the exclusion of others. As a result, we become increasingly convicted that we're good and the other side is evil. We become less empathetic for that what the other side might have experienced. In other words, by narrowing our attention, the business model also ends up narrowing our moral attention, our ability to see that there may be other prospects that matter morally. The consequence can be catastrophic. Mayer offers a tragic example. A few years ago, Facebook users there used the platform to incite violence against the, and it's hard to pronounce it, but I'll try anyway, Rohingya, a most Muslim minority group in the Buddhist majority country. The meme message and news that Facebook allows to be posted, shared on platforms vilify the Rohingya caste them and illegal immigrants and who harmfully local Buddhists. Next to Facebook algorithm, these emotions aroused posts were shared countless times during a user attention and to a ever narrowing and darker view of the Rohingya. The platform, by its own admission, did not do enough to redirect users' attention to source that would call the views into question. Every the Windows hate grew. Every the Windows hate grew. Every the Windows hate grew. And this is the fault of Facebook. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. Let that sink in. I'm gonna let y'all reminisce sink on that one. Let's continue. In 2017, thousands of Rohingya were killed. Hundreds of villagers were burned to the ground, and hundreds of thousands were forced to flee. It was United Nations said the textbook example of ethnic cleaning. Mayoral democracy was long known to be fragile. While the United States had been considered a Democrat par excellence, but Obama wasn't exaggerating when he said that Democrats is at stake, including an American soul. The past few years have been mounting concern over over the way social media gives authorians politicians a leg up by offering them the vast platform where they can demonize minor groups of other threes. Social media enables them to fuel population negative emotions like anger, fear. It will rally to them for protection. Negative emotions last longer as sticklers and spread faster. Explain Harris so that why the negative tends to outcompete the positive, unless social media companies take connection or correct. Sorry, if media companies take concerning action to stop the spread of hate speech, misinformation. But even when it came to the consequential 2020 U.S. election, when they had ample time to prepare for it, their actions still came too little too late, analyst notes. The way that attention and by extension more attention was shaped online ended up breeding a tragic moral outcome offline. 5 people delete in the Capitol riot. And it goes down. And let me see how much more for I gotta go here. Wow, this is long. I'm gonna try to get through as smooth as possible here. People who point out the dangers of digital technology or tech are often met with compiling of common critique. The first one goes like this: it is not that the tech company's fault is users' responsibility, the managers of their own intake. We need to stop being so what they call paternalistic. This would be a fair critique if there were symmetrical powers between users and tech companies. But as the documentary The Social Dilemma illustrates, the companies understand us better than we understand them, ourselves. They've got a supercomputer testing precision which color, sounds, and other design elements are best exploiting our psychology weakness, many of which we're not even conscious of. In the name of the holding of our attention compared to their artificial intelligence, AI, we're all children, Harris said. The documentary and children need protection. Another critique suggests technology may cause some problems, but it can also fix them. Why don't we build tech that enhances moral attention? Simple. I'll give you the answer to that. They won't. because by creating morality, they don't make money. They don't make money. They don't make money. Let that sink in. Thus far, much of the intervention in the digital sphere to enhance that has not worked out so well, said Tenzin Paraladarasha. I don't know how to pronounce it right. The director of Dalai Lama Center of Ethics and Transmitted Values at MIT. It is not far lacking of trying Paraladarasha and desires affiliates with the center have tried creating an app, 20 Days Strangers, that gives continuous updates on what another person is doing and feeling. You get to know where they are, but never find out who they are. The ideal is that anonymous yet intimate connection might make you more curious or empathetic towards the stranger you pass every day. They are also designed an app called Matara, a Matara, inspired by Buddhist notion of virtue's friend Kali Mara. I don't know if I pronounced it right. It prompts you to identify your core values and track how much you act in lines with them each day. The goal is to heighten your self-awareness, transforming your mind into a better friend and daily and ally. I try out the app, choosing families, kindness, creativity as the three values I want to track. For a few days, it worked great. Being prompted with a reminder that I value family gave me the extra nudge I need to call my grandmother more often. But despite my initial excitement, I soon forget all about the app. It didn't send me pushing notifications reminding me to log in each day. It didn't congregate when I achieved a streak of severe consecutive days. It didn't glamorify my success by rewarding me with points, badges, stickers, or animal chips. Standard fares and behaviors modifications apps these days. I hate to admit that the absence of these tricks led me to abandoning the app, but when I confess this to McGraw, the University of North Carolina Wilmington professor, she told me her students reached the same way in 2019. She conducted a formal study of students who were asked to use Matara. She found that although the app increased their moral attention to some extent, none of them said they continued to use it beyond the study. They become so accustomed to the app manipulating their attention and enticing them in certain ways that when they use the app that are intentionally designed not to do that, they find them boring, McGraw said. And one named by Paradarasha told me he now believes that the lack of addictive features is part of why new social networks meant as more ethical alternative to Facebook and Twitter, like Elo Diaspora or App.net, never managed to peel very many people off the bigger platforms. So he working to design tech that enhances people's moral attention on the platform, where they already spend time inspiring by pop-up ads or browsers. He wants sure to be able to integrate a plug in that periodically peppers their feed with good behavior nudges like, have you said a kind of word to a colleague today? Or did you call someone who elderly is sick or sick? Sound nice, but implicitly in this a shredder to a dispersed fact, companies such as Facebook have found a winning strategy for monopolizing our attention. Technologists can't convert people away unless they're willing to use the same harmful tricks as Facebook, which some thinkers feel defeated than propose. That brings up the fundamental question, since hooking our attention manipulatively as part of what makes Facebook so successful. If we ask it to hook our attention less, does that require it to give up some of its profits? Hmm. That's a very good question. I don't think so. I don't think that's really possible. Yes, they very much would have to, Harrison said. This is where it gets uncomfortable because we realize that our whole economy is entangled with this. More times than these platforms equal more money. So the healthy thing for society was less use of Facebook and very different kinds of Facebooks. This is not in line with the business model and they're not going to be for it. Yeah, come here. All social media is designed to make money. Keep that in mind. And then they are not for it. Facebook ran experiments in 2020 to see if posts deemed bad for the world, like political misinformation, could be demoted in the newsfeed. They could, but at a cost. The number of times people open Facebook this decreased the companies abandoning the approach. So they were trying some, but to no avail, it's not going to work. And it shouldn't work because, let's be honest, you created a platform based off negativity and fueling the opposite sex. Most like, I think women are more subject to social media than men, to be honest with you. So what can we do? We have two main options: regulation and self-regulation. We'll need both. On a social level, we have to start to recognize that big tech is probably not going to change unless the law forces it to, or become too costly financially or reputationally not to change. So one thing we can do as citizens is demand tech reform, putting public pressures of tech leaders and call them out if they fail to respond. Meanwhile, tech policies experts can push for new regulations. These regulations will have to change big tech incentives by punishing unwanted behavior. For example, by forcing platforms to pay for the harmful harm they inflict on society and reward humane behaviors. Change incentives would increase the chance that if up and coming technologists designs non-manipulative tech and investors move funding towards them, their better technology can actually take off in the marketplace. Regulators change are already in the offing. Just look at the recent antitrust charge against Google and the U.S. President Joe Biden discussion and appointing big tech critiques Leon Khan, a chair of the Federal Trade Commissions, and the sign of a sweeping executive order taking aim to anti-competitive practice in tech. Oh, I think this is one of my friend and me were talking about the other day. This is right here. Okay. As the historian Tim Wu has chronicled in his book, Attention Merchants, we got reasons to hope about the regulatory approach. In the past, when people felt a new invention was getting particularly distressing, they launched counter movements that successfully curtail it. When colorful lithograph posters came on the scene in 19th century France, suddenly feeling the urban environments perishing, grew disgusted with the ads, the enact law to limit where posts can go. Those regulations are still in place today. Changing the regulation or regulatory landscape is crucial because the aunts cannot be all of the individual to resist machinery, designed to be incredibly irresistible. However, we can't just wait for the laws to save us. Paradas said digital tech moves too fast for that. By the time policymakers and lawmakers come up with mechanisms to regulate technology has gone 10 years ahead. He told me they're always playing catch up. As even as we seek regulation of big tech, we individuals need to learn to self regulate, to train our attention as best we can. that the uphold of Jenny Odell book, How to Do Nothing, is not an anti-technology screed urge us to simply flee Facebook and Twitter. Instead, she urged us to try resisting in place. A real withdrawal of attention happens first and foremost in the minds of, she writes, what is needed then is not one of for all types of quitting, but ongoing training. The ability to withdraw attention, but to invest in somewhere, even to enlarge the what they call profitability, if it's improve its acuity, proliferate its improve its acuity. Odell describes how she trains her attention by studying nature, especially birds and plants. Good luck to that, because today, modern society, a lot of people don't get outside. And I'm not speaking as Ray, I'm speaking as real facts. There are many other ways to do it, from meditating. Buddhists recommend to reading literature. Martha Nussbaum, I'm not going to, let's move forward. As for me, I'm being doing all three. In the years since my sick friend Facebook post, I've become more intentional about birding, meditation, and reading fiction in order to train my attention. I am building attentional muscles to the hopes that next time someone needs me, I will be there for them, fully present, etc. And that's the end of the article. And like I said before, if you guys want this article, you gotta leave a comment at the end of this video if you got our way to this point. Looking forward to hear your thoughts on this. Please leave a comment at the end of this video, like, share, and subscribe to the Zero Ends channel. That's pretty much it. Thank you for watching or listening. Take care.